welcome to the happy place to grow, where we are growing our reading skills happily by using strategies to help us be successful readers. We have been working with our short vowel sounds, and most recently in session 5, if you've been joining me, we have been working with the star of our video lessons, short E, and we were building together some rhyming families, at, N, and L. We're thinking about, as we build words, beginning, middle, and end sounds, and putting the sounds together to form words. We're also thinking about patterns that we see, vowel and ending sounds. Once we see it in one word, when there's a different beginning sound, we realize, oh, I've seen that in the word hen. And then if we have a P here, oh, I just replaced the for a P, but I still keep the N. So thinking about letters and sounds and patterns, we can really improve our reading skills. And as I've said before, these are skills you can take even into when you're an adult and you're seeing or coming up against new words. You've got a strategy now, and we're working together. We have been building, reading and sorting according to rhyming family. We've also been thinking about mystery words, common words, and practicing those. And our last activity together was one of my favorites, spell check, where we're listening for the sounds in words and writing the letters that we hear and spelling the words, because spelling and reading are connected. In today's activity, we're going to take those individual words, because reading words, well, that's half the battle. We're going to be thinking about putting words together to form sentences. A sentence is a group of words that form a thought. And then we're going to connect the sentences to a topic to form a short story, because the purpose of being able to read a word is to be able to actually read stories. And once we can read stories, we can learn new things, new ideas, and we can just have adventures and fun reading make-believe stories too. Reading is very, very fun. Once you learn how to do it, the sky's the limit. There's no stopping you. So that's why we're working so hard to improve our skills. Today we're going to read this story, short story called The Eggs. It contains a lot of short E words. We're going to spy some et words, some N words, and some L words. We're also going to spy some words that we call common words. They're words that we see in a lot of stories, and we've worked on those words together. If you've joined me for some of the other lessons, we had a few common words that I have placed within this story. Today, as we're reading, we're going to be thinking about how to read fluently. So there's a flow. We don't want to read like a robot. Now had a hen. We don't want to read too fast to just be reading. Now had a hen. Da, 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 da. So we want to be able to read appropriately, because that brings fluency or flow, and the flow of your reading is definitely going to help you with your understanding. It really makes the story sound like what the author wanted you to feel or understand. So it gives the story that you're reading meaning. So reading it correctly is important. So when we're thinking about reading correctly, let's review, because we've read some short stories before, so let's just review what we're thinking about. When we see a capital or uppercase letter in a story, it can mean two things. It can be the start of a sentence or a special name. So if we see a capital and then we move from left to right, top to bottom, whenever we see a punctuation mark, we know sentence starts, sentence stops. And stories are built with sentences. Sentences are built with words. Words are put together to form thoughts and ideas that support the topic. Let's just review those punctuation marks. As we're thinking about our stops of each sentence, we're going to spy periods. You're going to see a period if it's a telling sentence. Another telling sentence has this punctuation mark called an exclamation mark. When you see that, the sentence should be read with expression, either anger or excitedness or nervousness. So feeling, strong feeling. And then the final punctuation mark to look for at the end of a sentence would be a question mark. If the sentence is a telling sentence, they're telling you ideas. If the sentence is asking a question, then you will have this ending mark, which is a question mark. They're all signs of sentences, just different types of sentences. So looking through this short story, we have our title, the name of the story. All of these sentences should support or give us information about the topic, so that if we see the topic, the title, all the sentences help us understand and it makes sense. We're thinking about white spaces in between each word so that we have a natural pause. We're still flowing, but we're not reading really, really fast like this and we can't take a breath. We're pausing in between each word. We don't want to read too slow. We don't want to read like a robot. And then if we see a punctuation, we know that sentence is done, and then we're moving to the next sentence. Sometimes when you're reading a story, you'll come to the end of a line, but it's not the end of a sentence. That's why those punctuation marks are really important for you to understand. I'm not stopping here. I just run out of space on my paper, so I'm going to keep going until I see an ending punctuation mark. So as we're reading today, we're going to team up, buddy up. I'm going to read the story to you so you can hear what it sounds like. You're following along. That's the first read. We're going to read it multiple times because the more you read a story, the better you'll flow as you're reading it, and you'll build your understanding the more times you read it. So stories are meant to be read more than once. It really helps you with two things, fluency and comprehension, your flow and your understanding. So it's okay to read it more than one time. I love to read a good book multiple times, and you will too, once you get your reading skills really going strongly. The second read, we'll call it an echo read. I'll read a sentence and you'll repeat it. I'll point and you repeat. We'll read it together, and then finally I'll point and you can read. I thought it would be fun today too, since we're talking about punctuation marks. I thought it would be fun at the end of our reading to count how many sentences are in this story, really spying in on those punctuation marks. And I'm going to ask you a few questions about this story. So as we're reading, think about what's happening. What's happening at the beginning of the story? What's happening in the middle? How did the story end? Think about the characters, okay? All right, so let's get started. I'm going to read the story. You're listening. The name of the story is The Eggs. So all these sentences should support this title or be about this title, okay? All right, here we go. Tune up those listeners. Here we go. The eggs. Now had a hen. The hen is her pet. Her hen had a nest. The nest had 10 eggs. Nell went to tell her mom. Then the shells had cracks and pop, 10 chicks fell in the nest. Our chicks are well, said Mom and Nell. Well, I definitely thought that this title was well supported by these sentences. They were telling us about the eggs. And we got a lot of details about the eggs too. Okay, our second time reading, remember, practice helps us with our flow and our understanding. Second time, I'm going to read. When I pause, then you repeat. Okay, here we go. The eggs. Nell had a hen. The hen is her pet. Her hen had a nest. The nest had 10 eggs. Nell went to tell her mom. Then the shells had cracks and pop. 10 chicks fell in the nest. I'm going to say that with feeling. Your turn. Our chicks are well, said Mom and Nell. Great job echo reading. Now, let's read this story together. You're at home, I'm here, but we're going to read it together. Remember, we're practicing, so the more we read, the better our flow. Here we go. The eggs. Nell had a hen. The hen is her pet. Her hen had a nest. The nest had 10 eggs. Nell went to tell her mom. Then the shells had cracks and pop. 10 chicks fell in the nest. Our chicks are well, said Mom and Nell. Good job reading. Notice that we read with expression here because we had that exclamation mark. Okay, your turn to read at home. You're going to read, I'll point. Here we go. I know you did fabulous on that, and hopefully here you read with expression. Good reading. Now, we said we're going to do two things before we close up. The first thing was we're thinking about punctuation. I didn't see any question marks, so this story didn't ask us any questions, like how many eggs are in the nest. So we're going to be looking for period dots and exclamations. We're going to count how many sentences are in this story, because we're thinking about that stories are formed with sentences, and to identify a sentence, we've got a capital and a punctuation mark. All right, let's count together. You help me keep track. Here's our first sentence, starts with a capital. This one's cool too because that's the start of a sentence and a special name. Good reasons to capitalize the first letter. One sentence. There's where the second sentence ends. We ran out of space, but the sentence continued. So we just keep on reading. It's two. Three, that one continued down on the next line. Start, stop. Four sentences. There's the start of our next sentence. Five sentences. This was a long sentence because we have this connecting word and. Instead of a period, we connected this thought and this thought, right? So far we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one's a long sentence, and it ends here with this exclamation. That's our sixth sentence. And then our final sentence. Wow, 7 sentences. A story that's 7 sentences long. Let's call it a short story for sure. All right, let's close up with thinking about what happened in the story. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. Sometimes when you're thinking about what's happening in a story, you're thinking about where you could find that answer. Sometimes it's right in the story. Sometimes you have to think and you make an inference. You think, this is happening, so why would that happen? So you're thinking, you're using some different kinds of thinking skills as you're answering questions. All right, here we go. First question. How many characters were in this story? Characters are animals or people who act out the story. What do you think? Characters. Well, for sure, Nell is a character in the story. That's one. And then what do you think about Mom? She was in the story because she was talking and Nell went to get her. So let's say this story has 2 characters. Nell would be like the main character, right? All right. Now, what kind of pet did Nell have? She didn't have a dog. She didn't have a fish. She had a pet hen. That one's definitely in the story. That one's easy. Here's one that we have to think about. We have to just think maybe why a character would do this. And we take it from our own experience too. Here's the question. Why did Nell go tell her mom about the 10 eggs? Now, it doesn't really tell us why. It tells us she went to tell her mom, but it doesn't tell us why she went to tell her mom. So what do you think? Let's think about it for a minute. Well, if it were me, if I were in Nell's shoes, I would be so excited that my pet had laid eggs in her nest. I would definitely want to go tell someone for sure, because I would be excited. Or maybe she was nervous. She was worried about the eggs and Nell, or her pet hen Nell was worried about. So maybe she went to go get her mom so her mom could help her out with the situation. We're not really sure, but we're thinking, we're making an inference, we're thinking about what makes sense, why a character would do that, even if it's not stated expressly in the story. Okay, here's our next question. what happened after the shells had cracks in them? So here's the part. The shells had cracks. Pop! They fell out. In other words, they hatched in the nest. That's what happened next. All right, final question. Why did Mom and Nell say that the chicks were well? Why do you think they said that? Doesn't really tell us in the story. Let's think for just a minute. Well, they probably said the chicks are well because they all hatched. They were all in the nests. Everything was okay. What do you think? One final question. If the story kept going, what do you think would happen next? I like to just imagine what might happen next if a story continued. Well, all is well. Do you think that the next thing to happen would be that Nell and her mom would take care of the chicks? Maybe they would feed the hen, make sure she was okay. Maybe they would call the vet for the vet to come and check out the situation. There could be lots of possibilities for sure. I think one thing that will happen if the story kept going on is that Nell would definitely enjoy her baby chicks. All right, readers, I'm so glad you joined me on our reading adventure, putting words into sentences, sentences into a story, reading and understanding and flowing. That's what reading is all about. And once we get our skills down, we can have fun, enjoy reading. It becomes an adventure and we can learn new things. The sky is definitely the limit when it comes to reading once we improve on those skills. All right, I want you to join me. Happy place to grow our reading. We're going to be working on our final short vowel in our next reading sessions. Short U is coming up. We're going to be building words and reading words and spelling words that have the short U sound. All right, readers, until our next time together, as always, keep reading, keep practicing, and I can't wait for us to get back together to conquer the short U sound and read some new words. All right, as always, have a good one.